So today we're going to talk a little bit about how to afford college. We'll go over some key points, some applications, and different types of grants you can apply for in order to make college a little bit more affordable for you. So let's dive straight into it. First, we'll just talk a little bit about tuition rates just to kind of develop a foundation for ourselves. As you can see here, public schools in the 80s averaging around 3,000, whereas private schools were around 15,000. Then we go into present time, where we're upwards of 9,000 a year for public schools and upwards of 34,000 for private schools. Getting more and more expensive. Tuition isn't getting any cheaper, as we can see, but we definitely have different tools, grants, scholarships that we could use to our advantage to make college a little bit more affordable. Going into the little couple of differences between public and private schools, maybe you're trying to decide where you want to transfer if you're in that stage. Public schools, as you can see, have cheaper tuition, usually larger class size, which leads to more demographic diversity. Usually they have more applicants that are accepted because there are more open spots in the school itself. And then you also have broader degree options, whereas private schools have a little bit more expensive tuition with a smaller class size. Some private schools, you will notice, offer a little bit more in scholarships and grant money, but you have to weigh that option against how expensive the tuition is in the first place. They do accept less applicants, as there are less applicants that usually apply, and there are less spots that are usually open. And they usually specialize in their degree offerings, where they might have a pharmacy school, dental school, different business schools, things like that. The first application you want to familiarize yourself with is the FAFSA application. This is your foundation for setting yourself up for any type of financial aid that you may want to receive or that you may qualify for. It'll set you up for your Pell Grant eligibility, your Cal Grant eligibility, any federal loans you may have to take out, any Parent Plus loans you'll have to take out, and then any gift aid you may receive from the school that you're attending. FAFSA is a free application, and I really recommend that you apply even if you think that you may not qualify for any aid, because you really won't know until you hear back from the financial aid office. So let's go into some of the different grants that are offered after you apply for FAFSA. The first one we have is our Cal Grant. There are 3 different types of Cal Grants. You have your Cal Grant A, which is based off GPA. You usually get a verification form from your high school leading into going into community college, or if you're going from community college into a 4-year university, your registrar will verify your GPA, send it to the transfer school, and Cal Grant will base your eligibility off of that. Then you have your Cal Grant B, which is based solely off income, and EFC, which is your expected family contribution. Expected family contribution is just a tool financial aid uses to estimate how much aid you may receive and how much money you are expected to bring toward your tuition. This is how they generate your financial aid letter. So that's really important after you apply for your FAFSA. And then the last one we have is Cal Grant C, which is for occupational or career colleges. This helps you pay for vocational tuition, and provides a little bit more tools in that area where there's less federal aid available. Now we'll go into scholarships, which I think is a really underrated part of financial aid. If you're a Las Positas College student, you may notice that we have our own portal for scholarships. These usually open up in the spring semester, and I believe they're due at the end of March. And if you qualify for any of the scholarships, you usually find out in May, and then they are paid out the next semester in August. If you're dual enrolled at Chabot and Las Positas, you might be able to qualify for Chabot scholarships as well if you have taken enough units, and you can increase your chances of getting more scholarships. Lastly, we have our national scholarships, which is any scholarships that aren't school specific, but they're usually posted to a portal. I use fastweb.com, but College Board has their own. If you go to FAFSA's website, the government website, they have a portal for scholarships as well. And I really urge that you apply for as many scholarships as you can, because it does not hurt to try. Another quick tip for this is to just have your personal statements typed up in your Google Drive, and then you can just customize it based off the scholarship that you're applying for. This helps me save a lot of time, and I applied for a lot of scholarships. I earned a lot of scholarship money to help pay for my tuition this way. Now we'll go into gift aid. Gift aid is really school specific or school system specific. If you're at Las Positas College right now and you're planning on transferring to a CSU, you want to look into the state university grant, which covers the university fees after you apply for FAFSA if you meet certain income guidelines. You will be notified of this automatically. There is no additional steps that you need to take. The financial aid office will notify you if you qualify. They'll let you know how much of your tuition is covered. Similarly, you have the UC system, which provides the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan. This is, again, based off of income, and they will cover your tuition if you meet specific guidelines. Again, you do need to have a FAFSA application in. So I'm emphasizing it again that if you want any sort of aid, you really need to start at that FAFSA application to qualify for anything additional. Then going into select universities, mostly private schools, they have their own grant system that they use with your financial aid application. They have UOP has a UOP grant. USC offers their own grants. This can reduce your tuition further, especially if you're going to a private school. And again, that does need FAFSA, so make sure you apply, even if you don't think you're going to qualify. So after all the gift aid, which doesn't need to be paid back, you start going into loans. You have two different types of government loans. One is subsidized and one is unsubsidized. The major difference between these two is the point at which your loans start accumulating any interest. Subsidized loans will not accumulate interest until 6 months after your graduation. Unsubsidized loans will accumulate interest right away. Then we have some other limited loans that aren't very popular but may still be helpful if you need to still pay off some of the tuition. You have your Parent Plus loans, which basically means your parents will take out loans in their name to help pay for your tuition. These are very limited, but you can still qualify for them, and they usually have lower interest rates than private loans. So you may want to look into these before looking at a bank for any type of private loans. And speaking a little bit on private loans here, you really want to use this as a last resort, in my opinion. These are offered by banks, so they usually have a higher interest rate. They have two types of interest rates that they may offer. One is a fixed interest rate, and the other is the variable interest rate. The main difference between these is the fixed interest rate does not fluctuate over the life of the loan. So if you take out a loan at a 4% fixed rate, your interest rate is going to stay at 4% until you pay off that loan entirely. Whereas a variable interest rate will fluctuate based off an index called the prime index. So this can fluctuate. They usually have a standard for themselves based off the bank that is providing it. But just to give an example, you might have a 4% interest rate at one point, and it may fluctuate to 10%, go higher, go lower. So it's really not consistent over the life of the loan. Now we go into tax benefits, which I think isn't talked about enough when it comes to financial aid. Tax benefits are really helpful for college students. When you complete your taxes at the end of the year, there's some credits that you can earn. There's the American Opportunity Credit and the Lifetime Learning Credit. Both of these, you can deduct your tuition expenses and you can be credited money back with your tax return. So you can have a pretty hefty check at the end of the year for paying tuition. So just keep that in mind when you are taking out loans or you're trying to pay for your tuition, that you may qualify for additional money and funds at the end of the year that you can use towards your next semester. And this is something that I added that's really specific for what's going on right now with COVID-19, especially if you were a student in the spring semester or if you're going into the fall semester at a transfer school. COVID-19 grants are being released. US schools had billions of dollars released to them by the government to give to students in order to provide assistance with tuition. I personally found a tool called Frank by Chegg, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. Frank will allow you to basically enter in your information. They will generate an email for you that you can actually send to your financial aid office to ask for additional COVID-19 emergency grant money. This is a completely free process that they provide. So if you were furloughed, if you had your work hours reduced, if your information that you filed in the FAFSA last year doesn't reflect your current situation, I would definitely recommend using this tool so you can try to decrease your tuition expenses and increase how much aid you earn. Me personally, the school that I'm transferring to, UOP, they released COVID-19 grant money to me, and various peers that I have, they've earned grant money that way as well. One last thing that I really want to cover, I actually saw this in an article recently, was asking for tuition discounts. I think this is really focused towards private schools, and this is something that I've recently reached out for as well. A lot of schools are moving towards hybrid classes or all online classes, but they're charging the same tuition rates. And I personally don't think it doesn't hurt to ask for a tuition discount if you explain your reasoning, if you explain what's going on with your family, your financial situation. Really, it does not hurt to ask, and you don't know if they're going to say yes or no until they do say, yes or no. So it really is worth it to just put yourself out there and ask the financial aid department for some sort of assistance. They may have some tools that they can offer that you weren't aware of before. So just to wrap it up, the 4 main points that I really wanted to emphasize here is: number 1, apply for your FAFSA. If you need help, Las Positas College financial aid offices at the school that you're attending, they do have tools to help you apply for that. Then you want to wait for your financial aid award. If you don't agree with your financial aid award, if you think something is missing or it doesn't reflect your current financial situation, you can always petition your financial aid office. You can reach out to them, ask them what steps you need to take in order to change your financial aid application, and then they can increase your grant money or your scholarship money or reduce your tuition based off of your personal experience. And lastly, want to emphasize applying for scholarships. It's free money. You don't have to pay it back. It can be as simple as just providing your basic information and writing an essay, and you can earn hundreds or thousands of dollars. That's free money, and it can really help you in the long term. And yeah, that's all I have for today. So we just covered some basic key points on how to afford college, and we have the tools out there for us. It's really up to us to go out there and find those tools and use them to our advantage. So I wish you all luck, and I hope you're staying safe during these times. Thank you.
All right, Sim, thank you very much for that presentation. I just want to point out some observations from my end, as well as you've done this presentation to a live audience, so I want to go ahead and share some observations I've seen. First off, it seems like one of the key takeaways here is being proactive, that you need to go fill out a FAFSA. You need to follow up with that FAFSA. You don't just sit there and wait. You need to make sure all these documents are being properly processed and that the results of them are right. And then to your point, you have to be, you said check the Chabot website. If you're dual enrolled, there's another whole set of scholarships for you. So, and then you even went into like asking for a reduced rate. So it sounds like you're turning over a lot of different stones here, because there's a lot of opportunity out there. You just have to go out and find it. Is that right? In that kind of in your experience?
Yeah, I think the main issue leading up to that, and the reason why I think some students don't go out there and put themselves out there, is just because they aren't provided the background knowledge to actually go and do it. I think that, like you said, there's a lot of stones that are left unturned. There's a lot of questions that aren't asked by students. And if you don't ask that question, you're never going to find out whether or not you are going to qualify or not. So I definitely agree with you. I think you need to ask those questions, even if you do get rejected, even if, they might take a week to respond. You can follow up with the phone call. I've done that twice already. During the summer process, I've called, I've left voicemails. you shouldn't feel afraid to reach out to a financial aid office. That's their job, is to help you with financial aid, to help you afford college. So, they can stay proactive in providing education to us, and we can afford the education and, not be drowning in debt at the end of your graduation. So, yeah, you just need to put yourself out there. You need to ask those questions, do your research. Maybe you can find something that I haven't found yet. And yeah, you just need to put yourself out there and try to find those opportunities for yourself.
Yeah, and also, some people, they think, oh, my parents make too much money, I'm not going to be able to, eligible for these programs, and that may be true. And let's not get into that because everyone has kind of their own unique situation. But one is it doesn't hurt to try, right? Would you agree? Like, just go ahead and try. What's the worst that happens? They say no, versus
Exactly.
what if you're wrong? What if you thought something but you were actually wrong, which is definitely a possibility. And then the second, I kind of want to go along with this same theme, is I know when you did this presentation live, people asked you, how much money have you gotten in scholarships? And I know it was a significant amount. I think it was more than five figures, correct? Or in the
Yeah.
five figures or more.
Yeah.
And, and you said hundreds of thousands earlier. I mean, that's kind of a lot. But to your point, let's just say for this example, it's $10,000. Like $10,000 can make a significant impact. That's all your parking paid. That's a new laptop. That's books. That's everything. So you don't have to worry about any of those expenses, at all. That can make life less stressful. You don't have to work as hard, so you don't have to spend so much time with overtime, and it frees up time to study and get more out of your school experience. So maybe you just want to talk really briefly about that whole thing of how, there's all these scholarships out there. A lot of them don't even get applied to, and that it's just free money.
Yeah. I mean, talking about the scholarships first, if you want, I think the best way to do it is, if you know the major that you're going in, if you kind of know the career that you're going in, maybe you can start off knocking out those scholarships that are very career and degree oriented. Just because you probably have some sort of personal statements already that you've written up, maybe applying to your transfer school or applying for local scholarships that you can use, and you can get those out of the way quickly. I think the big focus here is to apply for as many scholarships as you can and increase the quantity. That'll increase your chances of actually getting a scholarship, because like you said, some of these scholarships, they have no applicants for them. And if you're the only applicant there and you have, a decent letter of intent or a decent personal statement written up with good qualifications, you have a very good chance of receiving that scholarship. And I kind of want to touch a little bit on some of the grant money that's offered, especially if you're a transfer student looking to transfer. I mean, get your FAFSA in. There's so many state grants that are offered. You have your Cal grant, you have your Pell grant that can completely reduce your tuition cost to almost zero. And then you can start focusing on, okay, how am I going to start paying for my living expenses? How am I going to, you can focus on your food expenses. You can focus on the things that are a little bit more personal to you. It'll make your life a little bit easier while you're going through that college experience. And like you said, it's going to reduce stress. You're not going to have as many loans, as many burdens at the end of the year when you're graduating, and you log into your student loan portal and you see all the interest that you've accumulated. There's a lot of free money out there for students. It just doesn't get utilized enough. So if you're one of the fortunate few who actually go out there and capitalize on those opportunities, you have a really good chance of earning that money for your tuition, and even covering other expenses as well, like parking, housing, food, personal expenses. I mean, all of that factors in. So I definitely just want to capitalize on that again and emphasize really that the opportunities are there. So go out, find them, and apply yourself.
Yeah, awesome. And I kind of want to talk to you about that because I know you mentioned that the last time we did this is you told people of how you do this. And I just want to first preface that, you were saying you even asked for tuition reimbursements. And I know there's going to be some introverts out there who are going to kind of maybe like, ooh, I don't want to ask that. Like, ooh. And I can totally understand that. And don't worry, as you're listening, there's other opportunities out there. Not everyone's going to have the same kind of hustle or go get it mentality. but you don't have to necessarily have that extreme of an extreme. Even somewhere in the middle is going to, provide, results to people. But what I would like you to talk about is your process of doing the scholarships, because I think you said, you take like a certain amount of hours per week and you have these files on your computer ready to go. Can you kind of talk about your process on how you're able to apply for so many scholarships? And from my understanding of it, it's kind of a numbers game to you, right? It's like if I can apply to 100 and I have a 1% chance of getting in, well, that's still one scholarship I'm going to get for every 100. And if it takes me 10 minutes per scholarship, you multiply it out, it's like, I mean, I'm sure you've done the math before, you're pretty much paying yourself like $100 an hour or so. A lot of students don't think about it like that you can be paying yourself to be working on these scholarships. So maybe you could touch on that for, in your process.
Yeah, sure. I think when I was really getting into applying for the scholarships was around March when the Las Positas College and Chabot Scholarship portal were open. All of those, I jumped the gun on them. I knew I was going to apply for every single one that I qualified for. I think there were maybe like around 15 or 20 that I qualified for, and I mean I earned 3 of them. So
Wow.
I mean, that's an even higher percentage rate. I can't do math right now, but and I paid myself. I spent maybe 3 to 5 hours, maybe even less a week, applying for those. And I mean, just those 20 scholarships, I mean, I got those done in, just a matter of a few weeks, maybe like 1 to 2 weeks. And then after that, I started going on to some of the national scholarship tools that we have that aren't really looked at a lot. I think that a lot of those applications aren't filled out. Honestly, some of the requirements, they sometimes do ask for a lot of extra steps. But like I said, in my Google Drive, I have personal statements that I've written out. So personal statements, I'll kind of touch on this a little bit. Personal statements, you want to talk a little bit about where you are right now, your background, and where you're wanting to go. A lot of the scholarships will ask those type of questions. They want to know, what are you doing right now? How are you applying yourself? What's your financial background?
Can you give us like a quick example? Like what's your like quick pitch on that? Like what do you say?
First, you just want to start out with who you are. Then you want to go into what you're pursuing, what type of goals that you want to achieve. And then that last, you kind of want to summarize the financial background that you've been a part of and how you're going to use the scholarship money to, increase your effectiveness and make your community a better place. That's really what the scholarship committee that's looking at those scholarships, they want to hear. They want a candidate that is going to use that scholarship money for good and is going to make them a better student. So kind of just those 3 quick points, if I were to summarize it up.
Yeah, and so for you, that's like, for you, it's, you're a business student, you're looking to transfer, get a 4-year degree, and so that's what they're looking for. And then maybe also if you have family members who didn't go to college or something like that, they're looking for that. Like, are you a first-generation college goer? Yeah, so all that's really good information. They're looking for, someone who can really use this money to make significant change in their life.
Exactly. And can benefit from the aid that they're going to receive. And you'll notice when you start applying for a lot of these scholarships, I mean, if you can just dedicate an hour to 3 hours a week, which I personally don't think, that's 30 minutes a night almost.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do 3.5 hours, so if you can dedicate just those 30 minutes at the end of the night or before you go to bed, and you can just apply for 1 scholarship a day. I was doing 5 or 3 to 5 scholarships a day, just sending my information out there, tweaking the personal statements just a little bit. Your personal statements, you'll realize that a lot of the scholarships are asking for the same things. They might just have it reworded, and if you can just mirror the words that they're using in the responses, you'll increase your chances to get noticed. You'll increase your chances of actually making it to a follow-up. Sometimes scholarships, they want to follow up with you. They might email you, they might get in contact with you just to learn a little bit more about yourself. And kind of branching off from that creates network opportunities as well. I mean, you're putting your name out there. I know right now there's a lot of virtual things going on, and for a lot of the introverts out there, I was like that too. I think just getting over just being consistent with communicating with people. And now, I mean, you can email people, you can call people, and they'll never know your face. They'll only know your voice and your writing style, you know? So I feel like if you can kind of work yourself slowly getting over that fear, because it's okay to be afraid, but if you get over that fear, you're going to create a lot more opportunities for yourself, especially with um, financial aid. You just have to ask. You have to put yourself out there. I mean, it could be a simple email. A lot of us don't even have pictures on our emails. They'll never see your face. So
Yeah, and
just
there's templates out there as well, right? Like, so if they don't know what to write, it's like, oh, I've never done this before. What would I write in this email? You can also just Google, a template, introduction template or scholarship introduction template, or to your point, you can Google, personal statement template, and you can get like an example of what that might look like to kind of help guide you to that. But what I hear you saying, which is also true, is like practice makes it easier, right? It's only going to get easier the more you try. And so, even if you fail the first few times, you're going to succeed the, number 3, number 4, number 5. And then everyone's going to have different levels of comfort. It's just
exactly.
figuring out what works best for that individual. Well, I want to wrap it up here. I think this has been a huge success as far as I think if somebody's to listen to this, I think if it's going to give them multiple tools that they could use to help them through their college career. So I want to thank you again, Sim, for doing this. And I want to wish you and everyone else, luck and success in their school and their careers and onward. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks for having me on, Professor. I appreciate it.